Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu reported, one day I was riding behind the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam when he said, young man, I will teach you some words. Be mindful of Allah and He will take care of you. Be mindful of Him and you shall find Him at your side. If you ask, ask Allah. If you need help, seek it from Allah. Know that if the whole world were to gather together in order to help you, they would not be able to help you except if Allah had written so. And if the whole world were to gather together in order to harm you, they would not harm you except if Allah had written so. The pens have been lifted and the pages are dry. Ma'iyatullah. What is it? Why is it important for our kids to know it? And how I presented it to my kids. This famous hadith is talking mainly about a concept that explains the core truth about the nature of our relationship with Allah. This term is called Ma'iyatullah. So what is Ma'iyatullah? The characteristic of the word Ma'iyya is one of the fixed attributes of Allah in the Quran and the Sunnah, that Allah is with us. But with proving that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has established Himself above His throne. So how does this work? Let's try to explain the term Ma'iyatullah in a simple way, which of course will enable us to pass this information to our kids. The origin of the word Ma'iyya comes from the Arabic word Ma, which means with, or companionship, or association. But the combination of two things does not mean mixing. For example, the moon is with the travelers as they travel, although it is far away from them, and it is not mixing with them. So Ma'iyatullah means that Allah is with you in His knowledge, in the sense of comprehension and inclusion. And He is the knower of the unseen and the seen. Also, the meaning is extended to include protection, support, consolation, or perhaps tawfiq. But why to bother with this term and teach it to our kids at a young age? We sometimes get bogged down with the side issues of our religion, such as like definitions, fiqh issues, madahib and so on, while forgetting the essence of our relationship with the Creator. When we equip our children with every means of success, we should not forget to imprint in their memory and hearts these powerful rules to live by. The Prophet ﷺ captured this essence for Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu at a young age. He was probably 10 to 13 years old, because he knows sallallahu alaihi wasallam that even kids need to be aware of Ma'iyatullah. And he wants us to follow him with passing those words to our young generation. It is implied in this hadith and other verses in the Quran that there will be challenges and trials for believers. Young, old, male, female, everyone. You could have a son who is disabled or with hearing or sight difficulties. This hadith is meant to tell us hardship is never meant to break us if we have Allah by our side. So present this meaning in this hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas to our kids. We can simply rephrase the words. For example, we can say, if you take care of your relationship with Allah, He will take care of you. Whatever you need or desire in the end, it can only come from Him. This is not to say that you can never ask people for help, but we should understand that ultimately Allah is the source of help that comes our way. One of the great meanings or takeaways from this hadith is the freedom through reliance on Allah. Being mindful of Allah so that He takes care of you, seeking help only of Allah, and understanding that no good or harm, no matter how inevitable it seems, can befall us unless Allah wills. there is tremendous freedom from the hindrances of fear, loneliness, depression, anxiety when we rely only on Allah. Even great acts of courage, patience, independence, self-esteem become possible because the individual senses the company of Allah by his or her side. In addition, we know that whatever harm comes from Allah has been written and is inevitable because basically pens have been lifted and the pages have dried. So we can put our hearts and minds to rest, knowing that what is written will come to be no matter what, and Allah will be at our side. So how do I teach my kids these meanings? I tell them basically they can be superheroes by having Allah on their side. If Allah is with you, then who is against you? Who on this earth, whether a tyrant, a king, a manager, a bullying person, can win against you? Nobody. And on the other hand, if Allah is against you, who is with you? I have also made sure to link all the blessings we have back to Allah. So when we were gifted with our third child, baby Muhammad, I kept reminding the kids that Muhammad is a blessing from Allah. Also, after a great meal at home, I remind them that without the will of Allah, we wouldn't have this food, and so on. Doing this increases their love for Allah and thus establishes the meaning of Ma'iyyah. There are also many stories that you can tell to ingrain this meaning. I taught my kids the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam when at a young age was able to, or he was about to be burned alive after destroying the idols of his people. The angel Jibreel alayhi salam came to him and asked him, "Do you need help?" Ibrahim replied, "From you? No. As of Allah, then yes." You can tell the story of Yunus alayhi salam when he was swallowed by a giant fish. You can tell the story of Ashab al-Kahf, al-Fitya, as the Quran mentioned, the young people. You can mention these stories. But remember, we always tell our kids these stories, but we forget the moral behind them. We tend to care more that our kids can name the prophets or they can tell stories from the seerah. We tend to care about this more than what they can learn from them. Also, I told my kids about the story of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, when he was hiding with Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu in the cave of Thawr. Let's imagine the scene and imagine the effect of telling it to your kids. So the Muslims were being persecuted in Mecca and many of them had been given permission to emigrate to Medina. And in one incredible hot afternoon, the Prophet ﷺ finally received revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it was finally time to leave Mecca and migrate to Medina. His companion was none other than the truly faithful Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, and they set off on the long journey to Medina. On the way, they took refuge in the cave of Thawr, trying to escape the Quraysh. In the cave of Thawr, they hid, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu feared, not for his life, but the life of his leader, the life of our Nabi. The Quraysh were so close. The Prophet ﷺ turned to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu and told him the words which Allah mentioned in the Quran, the words which we will be reciting until the final day, the words which we need to teach to our kids and ourselves. He said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, "Abu Bakr, be not sad. Be not sad. Surely Allah is with us. La tahzan. Inna Allah ma'ana."